Spotlight is proudly sponsored by HEC Media.
Today on Spotlight, in November of 1960, more than 2,000 people gathered in St. Louis to hear Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speak. Plus, the stories on more than 100 Missourians who made tremendous achievements despite racial discrimination. And then an artist returns to his hometown for a special exhibition of his work, why he even includes pieces from when he was in kindergarten. But first, a hobby born during the pandemic that grew from a small farm to a new restaurant. It's Sunday, and you're watching the multiple Emmy Award-winning Spotlight.
All right, welcome to the farm.
It looks like something out of the future with its brightly colored neon lights. But the future is here and growing when it comes to hydroponic or vertical farming.
So we're using a system called NFT, which is nutrient film technique. You have water that has nutrients in it that you adjust the pH of, you add oxygen to it, so you oxygenate it, and then you put it in a small little trickle down a substrate that the plants are in. Each of the farms that we have are 10 feet by 40 feet by 10 feet high. And in each of those, we're able to grow 3 acres worth of produce.
For St. Louis native Josh Smith, hydroponic or soilless farming began by chance.
It was one of those COVID pivots.
The longtime vegetarian was designing sets for Broadway and hit shows like The Americans and The Flight Attendant. But during the pandemic, he left New York City and a new hobby began to grow.
I got a little tiny tabletop hydroponic kit, and it grew 5 little plants at a time, and it was adorable. And 3 months later, I had nerded out and bought a bunch of industrial hydroponic equipment from Iowa and had set up a whole site in my basement.
He decided to turn his hobby into a career, moving home and designing a new salad restaurant in St. Louis. It's playfully called Neon Greens.
We are a fully vertically integrated salad concept. So we are growing all of the greens for our own salads. Our menu will be salad focused. So we'll have about 10 signature salads on the menu.
The restaurant plans to support local farmers by using what they grow and do best. But Smith says it makes sense to grow lettuce because it's often imported from faraway states like California and Arizona.
Because of that, by the time it reaches you, it's nutritionally deficient. It's 3 weeks old, and it just doesn't taste very good.
Smith is using his expertise as a set designer to create what he calls an expressive and transparent experience.
I focused on a lot with the design of Neon Greens was creating a truly immersive experience that not only puts the customer inside the restaurant and, into the proximity of the farms, but makes them part of the process. As you're dining at Neon Greens or as you're lining up to order your salad, there's a conveyor belt overhead that's bringing the lettuce in from our harvest capsule.
Neon Greens is part of an internationally growing trend. Several area businesses use hydroponic farming, and the forecast from the business research company expects the indoor farming technology market to reach more than $53 billion by 2027.
The food system is the single largest impact that people have on the environment.
The World Wildlife Fund says the St. Louis region is poised to become the global center for innovation in soilless agriculture, thanks to a study and cooperative effort from dozens of experts the past few years.
We wanted to look at an urban area and an area that couldn't otherwise grow crops year-round outside, but quickly narrowed in on St. Louis because of its expertise in plant science, its obvious sort of incredible industry around agriculture as well. I believe St. Louis has more PhDs in plant science than any other spot in the world, per capita.
The University of Missouri-St. Louis is part of that coalition, which hopes to create a center of excellence on indoor farming in the near future.
The world, and certainly the U.S., we are still facing a grand challenge of food insecurity.
Professor Lee is a professor of supply chain and analytics. He hopes to use data to help indoor farming make economic sense.
So we are dedicated in education research as well as community outreach with the goal of transforming life. So this initiative really has the potential for the economic development needs in the St. Louis region, as well as plenty of new and exciting research opportunities, especially from the business and supply chain side.
There are no salad restaurants really of this kind in the area. And I wanted to invest in a community that, brought me out too.
At Neon Greens, Josh Smith says startup costs can be high for hydroponic farming, and energy use with LED lights is also a concern. But it's an issue he's addressing.
You actually adjust your day and night cycle to take loads off of the grid.
In addition to offering a farm-to-table experience unlike any other in town, Smith hopes Neon Greens sparks interest in hydroponic farming and all the opportunities that can grow from it, whether it be in a restaurant, a classroom, or a region-wide venture.
I think food is art. Food is an incredibly creative medium, so you're able to communicate a ton in that way. So it's kind of taking the creative production that I've done in my past life and just translating it to a different medium.
HEC Media. Recognized, celebrated, honored time and again for excellence in the industry. Find all of the award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
History Spotlight, brought to you by HEC Media and the Missouri Historical Society.
Hello, I'm Dr. Jody Sowell, president of the Missouri Historical Society in St. Louis, and this is History Spotlight. In November of 1960, more than 2,000 people crowded into this very room to hear Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. speak. Public historian Cecily Hunter tells us about his visit.
On November 27, 1960, 2,000 people would attend United Hebrew Temple to hear the speech of Dr. Martin Luther King, which was titled Future of Integration. During the 33rd season of the Liberal Forum of the Jewish Community Centers Association, Martin Luther King would be among a list of other 4 distinguished speakers who would come to St. Louis and speak about various topics. An attendee could purchase a ticket for $1.25, though if they were a student, the tickets would be 75 cents. Can you imagine? According to Rabbi Grauman, Martin was so weary that evening, and there were so many places he was unwelcome, even in danger. I invited him into my study at the temple, gave him some hot tea. It was a cold November night, and led him to my big leather armchair. I think he dozed for a few minutes and then came out of the room refreshed and ready to meet the 2,000 people that had gathered to hear his message of brotherhood. An account from an attendee on that evening mentioned the place was packed, jam-packed, and his speech was mesmerizing. Newspapers provided coverage and reported after the event that Martin Luther King Jr. stated, "The United States is standing on the threshold of the most creative period in the development of race relations." He spoke very frankly about the Ku Klux Klan and White Citizens Council by saying that they do not stop with legal tactics, and the forces of defiance present certain barriers. Although he talked about the different challenges that the United States faced, ultimately, Dr. King wanted to elicit a constant message of nonviolence and that the fact that integration could happen. Today, the building that hosted Martin Luther King Jr., as well as the 2,000 people who crowded this space, now serves as the Library and Research Center for the Missouri Historical Society. A plaque commemorating this major monumentous moment in celebration of Dr. King in that moment is now housed in the reading room.
Next week on History Spotlight, the St. Louis Rowing Clubs of the past.
To learn more about the Missouri Historical Society, visit mohistory.org.
Go to hecmedia.org for the arts and authors,
Completely accidental because I never set out to write a book.
science and history, culture and community,
It's considered to be the oldest organic farm west of the Mississippi.
education, films,
Finding the coin places the site firmly in the 13th century.
what's happening now around St. Louis, and more. See for yourself at hecmedia.org. For the Wright family of St. Louis, Black History Month is not confined by the bounding box of February.
Black History is every month. You don't wait till February and put it back in the closet.
Or in their case, back on the shelf. Dr. John Wright Sr., his wife Sylvia, and their son, Dr. John Wright Jr., are the authors of Extraordinary Black Missourians, with its cast of characters expanded in a new second edition.
There's so many people that aren't aware of contributions that have been made by people of color. There's so much that's left out of history. To suit a particular narrative, this book helps check some of that dishonesty.
For example, take the story of James Beckworth, a fur trapper from St. Louis who discovered an important pass through the Sierra Nevada mountains, an accomplishment so important it was celebrated in the film Tomahawk. But in the film, James Beckworth is called Saul Beckworth, and worse yet,
He was played by a white guy. So they saw the movie, they saw Jim Beckworth, but to them, everyone who saw, the white guy did that. So you have to make sure kids, black and white, get a true picture of history.
the first chapter in the book is the story of Archer Alexander, a fugitive slave living in St. Louis, who needed a place to hide after foiling a plot to booby-trap a bridge used by Union soldiers. He found safe harbor thanks to William Greenleaf Eliot, the founder of Washington University, who also helped create the controversial Freedman's Monument in Washington, D.C. It was Eliot who convinced the sculptor the model for the man being emancipated should be St. Louis's Archer Alexander. One of the really interesting stories in the book was Kathy Williams, or William Kathy, depending on how you tell the story.
Yes. She was the only known female Buffalo soldier. There may have been others. She got a commission right here in St. Louis at Jefferson Barracks. She hid her identity during the war. I mean, it's hard to do that, but she did. And when she applied for her pension, they wouldn't give it to her.
In the HBO docudrama about the Tuskegee Airmen, a fighter pilot called Hannibal Lee takes Eleanor Roosevelt up in a plane. The story is true, but that pilot's real name was not Hannibal Lee.
That was Charles Anderson, and from U City, who was a meteorologist who did that. From our town, from where I went to high school, a town where I did most of my growing up. I didn't know that was Charles Anderson.
In that same film, that same fictional Hannibal Lee takes out a German destroyer, but in real life, that was Wendell Pruitt from St. Louis, the Pruitt in the name of the Pruitt School, and perhaps better known, the Pruitt-Igoe housing complex. Among the lesser-known names is Elizabeth Keckley, an enslaved seamstress who bought her freedom and became the dressmaker for Mary Todd Lincoln. And the list goes on and on. The Wright family are all educators by profession, but they did not set out to write a textbook. It's more of a handbook, really, about using the tools you have to build a future you thought you could only imagine.
I think we'd have more of an interest in the present if we knew more about the past.
I suppose the thing that's really interesting about this is that not only were these people great, but they had to put up with so much more and overcome so much more to eventually achieve their greatness. It's amazing that any of them succeeded.
But it's a good story to tell kids. You see what they did and all the obstacles they had to overcome, you can do the same thing. You don't have half the battle to fight that they had. So you can do it. We'll see you at the top. Come on, let's go.
Two pastors help grow the community to make it better. Later on Spotlight.
My name is Dale Warfield. The title of the exhibition is the Dope Show STL, and it's a retrospective show that features work that I've done going all the way back to kindergarten. I would consider myself to be a multidisciplinary artist, but I'm a traditionally trained painter, so I got my degree in painting from Washington University. But like now, I work in a bunch of different mediums and formats, from painting to sculpture to woodwork, different printed material, etc. And the bulk of probably what I'm doing right now is usually centered around mixed medium pieces. But my skill set, I've kind of done and dabbled in a little bit of everything. So the Dope Show STL, like I mentioned, it's a retrospective show, but, a lot of it centers around like these dope pieces that I've been creating since probably like around 2014. Dope just stands for excellence, and so it was a word that was, somewhat hijacked in the early 80s, from rappers, coming out of New York City and breakdancers and things like that. And it's been a cultural mainstay ever since. And so, like me going back to my roots, I was a breakdancer, b-boy in St. Louis growing up. Like in 1983, 84, I was a breakdancer for Six Flags. A break dancer for the St. Louis Steamers soccer team. We danced for Herbie Hancock. And so dope was something that we said, consistently. And so when you go to the Dope Show STL, like you'll see a lot of those works, but then you'll also see things that, like I mentioned, go back to kindergarten, my college days, my days working as a freelance illustrator for a bunch of publications. Along with like album covers that I've designed over the years for some of the biggest hip hop artists in the world. We dedicated a wall that's like a mural that might be over 100 feet of all of my sketches and notes. And so it's a really good cohesive look at how I think and the things that I've done. One of the things I wanted to achieve is really create a point of inspiration, for young artists coming out of St. Louis, because sometimes you don't know what you can do and what's available. And so, one of my messages that I try to, really push forward is that anything is possible. And so when you see like the breadth of things that I've done, you don't have to throw yourself in a box or categorize yourself, just create. Big shout out to Kransberg Museum. They did an incredible job when me and my wife got down there to see, the installation that they had created. We were more than impressed. So shout out to the folks at Kransberg. Pack up the kids, put on something nice and cool, and slide down the sofas and check it out.
HEC Media, supporting and promoting the arts. Check out our features and shows on theater, dance, music, the visual arts, and more. Find this and all our award-winning content at hecmedia.org.
When it comes to education, one size does not fit all, which is why a newer movement called self-directed education has grown. This philosophy stems from ideas associated with homeschooling, unschooling, Montessori, and other child-centered approaches. Sudbury School in Missouri is one such school.
Sudbury is a self-directed democratic community. The self-directed piece refers to not having any sort of curriculum, any sort of homework, any sort of tests. So we trust them with their own progress and their ability to gauge that for themselves. We're much more concerned with the social emotional growth of students, and we are more interested in fostering that for them so that they have the time and space to pursue the things that they're interested in.
Sudbury has been a giant shift in our world. I think that it's just an incredible option out there for parents who want to give their child an opportunity to think for themselves, to create sort of self-reliance and independence, to be able to be motivated to do things on your own. There's a lot of skills that students learn here that they can be who they want to be, motivated by what they learn on their own.
I've sort of found like the person that I am here, and I think it's really cool that I have like the space to do that here.
I feel like self-directed education is a really good experience to be able to give kids the liberty of taking over their studies and being able to do what they would like.
While there are upwards of 100 Sudbury schools around the world, Missouri School opened more recently in 2019.
Definitely is filling a need that wasn't previously being filled by any other school. We are the only school that is a democratic community, so we incorporate the aspect of All the students get a vote and a say in how the school runs. Everything from the rules to what we choose to spend our school budget on, all of these things are voted on by students.
Everyone has a voice. If you want the school to be a certain way, like that actually matters, and like you can talk about it in school meeting and people will actually listen.
When we came here, it was just obvious that we had finally found a place that was willing to embrace the inherent value of each individual, trying to inspire each person to have their own contribution to make.
My favorite thing about Sudbury is the freedom. It feels great because I feel like I'm my own boss.
Sudbury encompasses a neurodiverse population, from students who thrived on paper and traditional school settings to those who really struggled. In this non-traditional setting, Sudbury focuses on the positive qualities of the individual experiences of the learner.
Learning how to speak up for myself and being able to share my opinion to everyone in school meeting.
I'm probably learning aspects of how to talk to coworkers, how to just in general be around people and understand emotion.
I became a lot more social since coming to Sudbury. It's helped me with my confidence and being social, just having friends. I have more friends here than I've had in a while.
It may seem to some that having no curriculum would be an excuse for students to play all day, yet that is far from reality. Life skills are learned at each student's own pace, based on their interests.
At the moment that a student expresses interest in something, the adults in the space, staff and volunteer alike, are there to help facilitate that learning, however that looks. I consider skills like reading and like the arithmetic that you need in order to move through the world. I think those are actually soft skills. I think those are skills that they pick up along the way based on the necessity of their life, right? So somebody who's interested in woodwork, they're going to learn a lot more math probably than a student who is interested in journalism. I think that the critical things they need to be learning are how to resolve conflict, or how to relate to other people, how to connect in a community where it's required of you to be accountable to other people and to be accountable to yourself and to hold other people accountable. Those are all things that we foster here as staff.
At Sudbury, people are allowed to express their feelings and learn what it looks like in others and learn how others receive them well.
One of the enormous things that Sudbury can do for some families is that it improves the relationship between the parents and the child. I mean, there are moments of doubt, but when you see how he's transformed and how he's navigated things on his own, it's totally worth it.
I really enjoy Sudbury. It's probably one of my favorite things ever.
For more St. Louis stories, subscribe to the HEC YouTube channel. Connect STL from HEC Media.
Our background, my husband and myself, we've been pastors in the community for 18 years, 19 years. We started with the nonprofit actually before we began pastoring our church.
As a pastor of Refuge and Restoration Church and being involved in this sort of nonprofit space, it really has given us, particularly myself, I've said, different sort of perspective when it comes to community engagement. We just simply believe everything that we do will produce something else.
The reason why we felt like it was really relevant to place the R&R Marketplace in this particular location is, one, we saw the disinvestment firsthand, and so our family lives here. Like I said, we do business here, and so we got to hear the community firsthand as opposed to just surveying them. And so we were like, hey, it's time for someone who has leadership that is from within the community to say, we can do this.
So our 5 pillars for the project from the very beginning: workforce development, which is Employ St. Louis; our bank and partner finance, which is Midwest Bank; North County Innovation Center for Entrepreneurship; the church, which is part of phase 2, and then the Early Childhood Learning Center, which is part of phase 1, but it's opening soon. Those 5 pillars were essential for community transformation. We knew that we can move all the other pieces around, but those 5 things had to be a part of this project.
Also, ARCA, which is Assisted Recovery Centers of America, is also going to be here. They're a behavioral health care center that deals with addiction services and then also with pharmaceutical care. Phase 2 is what houses what's called the multiplex. And so the multiplex will actually have a black box theater. We will have a commercial kitchen there, and all of our community partners will be there as well.
The day of the ribbon cutting, over 500 people showed up. And it's because we had shared this story with everybody. You got community leaders, you have political leaders all in one space, black, white, young, old, rich, poor, everybody coming together and really creating a new narrative, because everything out of our area has been about the racial divide, everything in the news, the media is negative. And so one of our prayers and dreams had been, one day we're gonna be able to tell a different story. We're gonna be able to have a new narrative about our community, about Dalewood, about Ferguson. What we saw happen on that day is that was a fulfillment of the vision and a dream that we had to see everybody come together in St. Louis to prove it really is possible when people come together on one accord and believe. The ideal for the Innovation Center, which we're in now, is to build capacity around entrepreneurs. In our country, the average Black American who starts a business starts with $5,000 worth of capital. The peers in white America starts with $100,000. Drastic difference in why our success rate is so much lower. What we talked about with Midwest Bank, we needed a competitive product.
One of our goals at Midwest Bank Center is to create affordable access to capital and focus on the over 35 predatory lending practices that are located within 5 miles of our Dalewood location. When you're earning $1, instead of paying it to a predatory lending business with exorbitant amount of interest, you keep that. You build wealth. We made a commitment to provide access to capital in the form of $200 million over a 5-year period. The purpose of that is to create opportunities for home ownership, to create opportunities for industry to be attracted to our region.
The dream would be the community would grab a hold of ownership. Everybody always says that saying, you teach a man to fish, and I always mess it up. But we don't really want to teach anybody to fish. We want to teach pond ownership. Equity is not just about being in the space or having a space at the table, but it's about creating space for others as well. We're proud of the fact that we are Indigenous leaders that have said that, hey, this is St. Louis, this is our city. We are excited that we could be a part of the ecosystem that is generating capacity, and so we're very grateful for that.
Being able to do something of this magnitude has instilled a sense of hope and faith and possibility. And so to be a part of that, or to hear people say, you've encouraged me, made us believe that we can do some things that we didn't think we could do.
This investment says to the communities that are in this area that we are important, that we are in this together.
Next week, inside St. Louis's rowing history, how that includes several Olympic medals. Plus, meet a man who's been making violins since the late 70s. Thanks for watching Spotlight. Join us next Sunday at 9:30 a.m. on KPLR 11.